Why are you all here at church today? This is a question that I've been asking myself, so I have an answer. But if you could, just for a minute, turn to your neighbor, introduce yourself if you don't know them, or maybe find someone across the table who you don't know, and just tell them one out of many possible reasons why you are here today. I'll just do that for like 30 seconds. Alrighty, so currently I'm not only an official member of this church, but I also work for the church, volunteer a bunch of my time to the church, run a home group with members of this church. My husband is on the board at the church, and I consistently hang out with people from this church. So basically, I don't just attend this church, I am the church. Thanks for the laugh. But this is not always the case. Most of you know my story. If you don't, it is on the website, My Life So Far, Andrea. Ben, my husband, just did his last week, so I'll try to hold it together. But I grew up Christian and was very involved in my church and my Christian faith. And then things fell apart for me around the age of 21 when I started to question the exclusivity of church. By 27, I had left my church and questioned all my Christian beliefs. For years, I did not attend church, and it felt liberating. You see, I was taught to fear the world and its worldly things, that it would lead me into temptation and cause me to stumble. But actually, when I eventually did leave the church, I met a lot of really cool people who taught me a lot about different ways of pursuing spirituality. Some of them were yoga, meditation, crystals, chanting, mantras. These are all things that I now embrace, but was taught to avoid as they did not line up with my Christian values. My point isn't to put down the leaders of my past, because I truly believe that they were doing this out of the goodness of their heart. But unfortunately, it made me feel afraid and restricted. So I left church for over a decade. I went through all the stages of deconstruction. I don't know if that's a thing, stages of deconstruction, but I'm just going to tell you what my stages of deconstruction are. So one was relief and alignment with my inner self. So leaving the church helped me to feel actually true and in line with what I was feeling inside. Complete terror for what this meant for my salvation, as I was taught that you need to believe in Jesus so you don't go to hell, and you got to go to church every Sunday. So leaving that was very scary for me. I felt defensive towards my friends and family, that I needed to come up with a really good reason why I wasn't attending church anymore. And I didn't really know necessarily, but I just knew it didn't feel right for me at that time. Sad for the connections that I had lost, and then ultimately left me feeling lost. I had my whole life identity was wrapped around this church, and I knew what I believed, and now I no longer knew what I believed, but I knew what I didn't believe. And I didn't believe that the majority of God's children were going to hell. And I didn't even know how I felt about heaven and hell and sin and these major themes of Christianity. So it wasn't that I lost my faith, and I didn't lose my connection to God or my desire to pursue my spiritual life. I just no longer identified as the kind of Christian I once was and the kind of Christian my church endorsed. So during my decade away from church and Christianity, I looked for ways to disprove it. I mean, that's naturally what you do, I guess, when you leave something that you thought you believed in and no longer, or we were challenging it. I don't even think I consciously did that. I just wanted to sort of understand why I was leaving. So the next section of my talk is called Reasons Not to Attend Church. I don't think we should put this on the website, but this is what I'm going to talk about now. One reason is, actually it's a little bit of an inside joke, but the chair seating in area, I don't know how you guys are feeling about this, but if it feels a little uncomfortable, you might not want to come back. Okay, so the first one is the harm that it has caused. So feeling into that for me was challenging, because associating myself with a church or with the church and what that looked like and what people assumed that meant, when, to be honest, like we all know, religion and church has caused a lot of harm. And so to say I go to church or I'm a Christian and all the connotations that that comes with, that was hard for me to do. And so, I don't want to elaborate too much on the hurt that churches cause, but I think either we all have experienced that, or we know somebody who has, or maybe we have caused that hurt. If you haven't already listened to it or you don't know about it, but Hillary McBride has a great podcast called Holy Hurt, and she just has an eloquent and educated way of explaining spiritual trauma. She suggests that even if you haven't had it, that you should still listen and you should still learn, especially as we are members of a spiritual and religious community, as it is important for us to recognize the potential harm that we as a church can cause. If you haven't listened to that yet, take a listen, it's great. Okay, so another reason not to attend church is the time commitment. There's only 7 days in a week, and if you work 5 of those 7 days, then you might just want to take 2 days off and not go. I know that for myself, when I was off for a decade of going to church, over a decade, I really liked my Sunday mornings just in my PJs. So, I think that that with that said, I want to just sort of make a little note here that I believe that there are seasons of life, seasons where coming to church on a regular basis really works, where volunteering and being involved feels good and actually brings life. And then there are seasons of breaks and rest, seasons where other commitments take the center stage and casual commitments work. So I just wanted to say that this talk isn't in any way supposed to come across as pressure or condemnation for showing up to church every Sunday, although I would really like it because I'm here most Sundays and then I get to see you all. So another reason not to attend church is being in a group of people. Now, for some reason, I know the reasons, but for some people, it's difficult to be in a group of others. There's social anxiety, there's feelings of, do I belong, do I know anyone? Sometimes just having conversations with people can be exhausting, depending on how introverted or extroverted you are. So I just wanted us to be aware of that can be a valid reason to feel like you don't want to attend church. So then my last one is, actually, I'm going to add another one. It's not in my notes. Your children don't want to come to church. I don't know if anyone else experiences it, but if you've seen my family, it can be challenging to come to church when I have one who literally just said here up at the front, I don't want to go to Blaze Kids. So that can be tricky. That can be challenging. And again, depending on what's going on for them. And that's hard as a parent because I love this community and value it so much and have found my way, back in. But I also want to honor and respect that we're all on our own journey. So there's that. This one's up. I took a note from you, babe, and I brought some water. Okay. So the last one I have here is not agreeing with everything that is taught or believed in church. This was my main reason to not attend church for over a decade. I keep saying that. I had this scripture verse stuck in my head. You're either hot or you're cold. You can't be lukewarm or you will get spit out of the mouth of God, I guess, was the sentiment that I had in my head. Paul Thiel, maybe there's a sermon in there for you. I'm not sure. Just how to unpack that. What does that mean for a young person? It was either you're on fire or flee from me. And so to be someone who was in a seeker position, who was moving towards being comfortable with the unknown, that was really tricky because at church it felt like everyone knew what they were talking about and I didn't know if I agreed anymore. So I would still miss it. I still missed my relationships. I missed the music, the teachings that felt challenging and inspiring. The intergenerational connections and support from people who spoke my Christian language, the language I was raised in. And even though it looked different now, I still loved being a part of that Christian faith. So, here were my options. I no longer could go to church because of those reasons. And so my options were, 1, join a new faith. And I'm not against this one, actually. But given that I believe, and if you know me or have had any sort of deep conversations with me, you know that I believe that everything is happening for a reason, and that life and God are revealing themselves to us. And so I was born into a Christian family. It was where I had my roots and where I had my connections. And so it was actually really difficult for me to join a new faith. Plus the fact is that, will I find another faith that just 100% lined up with everything I believed? I didn't know that I could. So I also toyed with the idea of starting a new church. I was super tempted by this one. I don't know, I love planning events and being with people. So I canvassed a couple of my friends, the ones who showed just like a little inkling of progressiveness, but that sort of, bombed because, let's be honest, it's a lot of work, and so I decided to just drop that idea. So my last option was join a church and be comfortable with not believing everything that they believed. So this one was a tricky one, as I knew what I didn't believe, and the only thing that I knew that I did believe was that I didn't feel comfortable around people who were certain about their faith. So that makes it tricky to be in church sometimes. As I deconstructed my beliefs, I was actually super triggered when someone would get up on stage and say out to their audience, this is who God is and this is what God wants you to do. Unless that God was about love and acceptance, I just had a really hard time with that. Even now, I would say that probably my nervous system has calmed down a bit, and I've dealt with some of that trauma or pain, but still I feel like I need to sometimes really look at it at a different way, but I'll get into more of that later. So then, as life or God or the divine does, I opened up my Instagram and was hit with some truth. There was this great liturgist Instagram reel where Michael Gungor talks about how we are all saying the same thing, but with different words. We are all wanting connection to truth, to love, to comfort, to our source, our higher power, to the mystery, to the divine, to God. It made me feel like I could attend a church and sing and share with authenticity as I started to see that we are all on this journey together and we are all looking for the same thing. So one of the reasons I've become more and more comfortable with identifying myself as a Christian is because I believe we are evolving. I value the mystery and the uncertainty and the unknown. When I hear Christian leaders talk about how we are meant to take the Bible and flip it around and turn it upside down and let the words speak to us in new ways, it gives me hope. Hope that we haven't figured it all out, and hope that we are moving towards love. Hope that I would and have found a church that allows this evolving, allows comfort in the discomfort, which now leads me to reasons why I attend church. We can maybe put this on the website. I don't know. I'll run it past Pamela and Paul after. Okay, so first one is community. When I was not attending church, I was spending my time with mostly those who I wanted to. These people were generally my age and were of similar perspective. It was easy to attract these types of people into my life, and it felt really good. And I believe it is good. But I also believe that we grow and mature through opening up our perspectives and learning from people through all walks of life. Church can provide this place. It can be humbling. It can feel uncomfortable. To be honest, there are certain songs that people choose to lead us in, and certain phrases that people say here at church that still irk me, that still make me not feel super comfortable. And yet, the way that I look at life is everything is here for me to learn about myself, about God, and those around me. And so I ask myself questions like, why did that irk me? Do I have any old beliefs that I need to look at a new perspective? in this process of coming together with people you didn't choose necessarily to hang out with, we enrich our lives and contribute to this rich and diverse tapestry that we are weaving together. So the next reason is connection. Consistent, weekly connection to listen and to share, to sing and learn, connection to God, the divine, the mystery. When I'm singing here at church with this beautiful collective of folks, that's all of you, it's different when I'm just singing at home or when Ben and I are jamming out together. We were actually just at a gig last night. We were in someone's living room. They paid us to play for their 50th birthday, and it was lovely. They were all like 15, sort of yoga instructor type people, open, lovely, like very open-hearted, and we sang our cover music, and it was great. But there's something different about it being here at church. Again, we are weaving together this tapestry. We each bring a thread each week, and we add it to the fabric, and then something happens. And I don't actually even want to label what it is that happens, because I think we all take something different from it every week. And often when I talk to people, there's something that they really picked up on that really meant something to them. Okay, so the next reason why to attend church is volunteering. Classic from Andrea. Okay, so if you're having a hard time making connections at church, my next point will help. Volunteer. Volunteer is a way to get involved, feel needed, have a job, contribute, and meet people. I mean, can I say too much about volunteering? When you are involved, you have a place, a role, you serve, and you are served. So, ways you can volunteer: coffee and tea, host a meeting at your house, volunteer with the kids. Right now, we're looking for someone to help out with the middle school age kids. So if that's something that, resonates with you or something you feel you would really enjoy, then please come and talk to me. One thing I would say about this church is we have a really strong value of not burning oneself out. So what I would suggest to do is to find what makes you feel alive and find what makes you feel like it gives you energy. It could be music, it could be art, hosting, sports, cooking, the list goes on. It's a way for us to all contribute to this beautiful community and enrich each other's lives. So this world is a crazy place. I mean, I don't know if it could get any crazier. And sometimes I ask myself, how are we going to make it through? Science pops to mind. That's a great way. Also, and this is a list that I've come up with, tolerance, hope, acceptance, surrender, support from each other, perspective, and insight. Not only do the people of this church offer it, but also the spiritual practices that the church offers. So spiritual practices is not something that I grew up in my language, but I'm learning more about it. So I either call it spiritual practices or practices for the nervous system. That's sort of how I can identify that within myself. So one of them is prayer. Pamela does such a great job of teaching and leading us into open and creative prayer, as well as each member who comes up to the front during community prayer and pours out their heart. It often brings me to tears, and it's such a blessing to have this in our lives, to take a deep breath and to hear from how someone else puts into words what I'm feeling and what we are feeling, and to surrender all our grief, gratitude, pain, uncertainty, and certainty to our source, to God, to the divine, to the mystery. As a collective, we do this, and I feel it changes us. It allows us to let go of what we need to and welcome in what will nourish and sustain us. Meditation and yoga. The church has offered this for seasons at a time, and this brings breath and stillness into the body, creating stress relief and emotional relief. And I think we also do some meditative practices here as well, when we're just taking in some deep breaths and connecting inwards into our spirits, into our connection with God that is within us. So singing is another one. I once heard that gratitude is the highest vibration, and that in that vibration we heal and things shift. That might sound a little woo-woo to you, and I know that I'm a little bit of a woo-woo person, so I won't go too much into detail about vibration and all that sort of stuff. But basically, what I do know is that when I am in a posture of gratitude, then I am not anxious. And then I feel that connection to God and to myself and to others. And so I think singing together and rejoicing and having that time as a collective is just really special. It magnifies that energy here, and yeah, I feel like it shifts things for me. Singing can also be cathartic, allowing for hard emotions to be processed and released. Sometimes I read the lyrics to the songs, and I think that song speaks exactly to what I am feeling, and I'm just able to sort of let that be. Scripture reading, or the library of books that we have called the Bible, and interpretation. I don't know if there has ever been anyone in my life who has interpreted the scriptures as well as Paul Thiel. Both Ben and I basically wrote this book off, thinking that there really wasn't anything relevant in the Bible for us. And when I hear Paul preach each Sunday about his insights into the Bible, I feel like I understand why we have it around still, why we have this really old book, one that continues to reveal treasures and answers and insights into present day issues, and above all else, keeps pointing us back to love, to radical, badass acceptance, to a man named Jesus who is so radical and so counterculture that he loves so fiercely and welcomed us into this new way of love. Okay, so the next one is delight and joy. Do you want to come up and share for a minute? No? Okay. That's fine. Ben sort of added this in here, and so I agree with it. I think that church does add delight and joy. I mean, we're laughing right now, so that's wonderful. I mean, I love the smiles. I love the children. I love being here together, and obviously delight and joy is a beautiful thing to add to our lives. Alrighty, so reasons why I attend this church. Gonna get out my Kleenex just in case. Okay. Alrighty. I'm sorry if this makes some people uncomfortable, but I'm just going to have to gush up here for a minute or 5. But when I first arrived at this church, unsure and slightly triggered, you, Pamela, came to me, put a hand on my shoulder, and you welcomed me in. You made me feel safe and seen in this crowd of people. You are a touchstone. You pursued connection with me. You came over to our house to get to know us. And I just don't know if you know how much that means. Because it truly does. Each time you preach, I always come away with a nugget of truth and a feeling that I am known. And each time we have conversations about how I'm unraveling my Christian faith and my past, and I'm not sure, and you just tell me it's okay, that really truly makes me not feel alone anymore. It's really hard when you feel like because you no longer believe something and you're unsure that you don't belong. And that is just not the case in this church. And Paul, the hilarious, intelligent, wise, and humble Paul, making meaning, Paul Thiel, just so you know, I mean, I love Paul well as well. Making meaning of what felt like, honestly, a meaningless book, the Bible. It was used as a weapon, as a very confusing and contradicting weapon, extracting one verse at a time to prove a point. That you have made meaning of it for me, context and research and interpretation that brings us back to the love of God. Another reason Try not to look at Ben. Another reason that I attend this church is because I have some real authentic relationships and connections. So a couple weeks back, this is just an example, there's lots of examples, and I hope you all feel this year as well. A couple weeks back, I was having a really hard week. And it wasn't something that I really talked about with anybody. And it was a really busy week. And I came here to church, and I came up here and I played music and I helped out with the kids. And I felt like I was actually doing a good job of hiding what was going on. Not intentionally, just there wasn't any time to really process. And as we were packing up and getting ready to go, Jenna came over to me, and she just said to me, "It looks like you're not the same. There's something going on, and I just want you to know that I see you." And she gave me a huge hug, and that meant so much to me, to feel like she doesn't know what's going on, but she can sense something because we're in a relationship, actually a really new relationship. Jenna comes to our home group, but it's only been a couple of times that we've actually hung out. And I just feel like that connection really helped me process some of the stuff that I was feeling, knowing that I wasn't alone. And I feel like that is, again, what we're doing here. What is great is that we are doing this all together. We have unique journeys, contemplating and feeling our way through hard and tough experiences. I've honestly pictured myself in like a spiraling dark hole, like lying in bed thinking of the universe just gobbling me up. But knowing that I'm not alone, that I have others to journey with in this community, I just don't know how else to explain how important that is. We have pastors who don't pretend to know all the answers, but offer insight and wisdom. And we join together to listen, to share, to comfort, to encourage, and to hold space. So, why do I attend church? Because I don't know. Because I have big questions. Questions that I don't need answers, but rather space to percolate and ponder and add perspective and life experiences, to relate to and to offer up new ways of looking at things. We are a prism, each a different part, letting the light in at a different angle. With this community, I have wrestled with my past and present understandings. I have found peace in the collective unknowing and have made and found meaning through the wisdom and knowledge of the people who have dedicated time to learning and questioning and grappling with God, and have made that outcome of the grappling relevant. We meet together and we add a strand to this fabric we are creating, we are weaving. Even when something seems like it doesn't have a rhythm or a rhyme, we add. We trust, we hope, we are authentic, we change our minds and grow, but we leave what we've created and we add to it. A new color or texture. Like Ben said last week, we may often forget what we knew from time to time. But just a moment of remembrance allows us to embrace the journey. We will change, that is certain, and that, in my opinion, is the magic, the mystery, and the beauty of church.